Now, the greatest radio shows of all time.
Suspense.
The Shadow Node.
Washington calling David Harding, counter-spy.
Classic radio theater.
The Great Gildersleeve.
Fibber McGee and Molly.
Dragnet. Gunsmoke.
The Lone Ranger.
Now, step back into our time machine with your host, Wyatt Cox.
Good evening, friends of the Inner Sanctum.
Comedy this hour, Eve Arden starring as our Miss Brooks in an episode from February 5th, 1950. This is entitled Miss Enright's Dinner.
Colgate Dental Cream to clean your breath while you clean your teeth and help stop tooth decay, and Luster Cream Shampoo for soft, glamorous, caressable hair brings you Our Miss Brooks starring Eve Arden. It's time once again for another comedy episode of Our Miss Brooks, written by Al Lewis. For many teachers throughout the country, the past week marked the beginning of a new semester. And for our Miss Brooks, who teaches English at Madison High School, it was quite a busy time.
Thanks to our beloved principal, Osgood Conklin, it was even busier for me than for the rest of the faculty. For in addition to my school duties, he had me typing reports at home in the evenings. All week long, I didn't have a moment to myself. And worse than that, I didn't have a moment to Mr. Boynton. Friday morning at breakfast, I couldn't help bending my landlady's sympathetic ear. So you see, Mrs. Davis, not only have I spent the past 4 nights working for nothing, but I haven't been able to spend any time with Mr. Boynton.
That's a shame, Connie. But why did you take on all that extra work? You told me yourself you volunteered to do it for Mr. Conklin.
Of course I volunteered. I'm too young to face a firing squad. But it's not the work I mind. There's something else that bothers me.
Now, look, Connie, I know that Mr. Boynton is tall, dark, handsome, charming.
That's what bothers me. It's where he's been while I've been busy.
Mr. Boynton? Why, he's probably been at home every night, twiddling his thumbs.
You're wrong, Mrs. Davis. He's been at Miss Enright's 3 nights in a row. And for all I know, he's been twiddling her thumbs.
I don't think you have to worry about Miss Enright, Connie. She may be a capable English teacher, but when it comes to looks, she's no competition.
I don't know about that. She's quite an attractive person these days. These foggy days, that is. Well, I appreciate this pep talk, Mrs. Davis, but I'd better get ready to leave. Walter Denton said he'd pick me up early.
Good, Connie. That'll give you a chance to plan your counterattack. If you really believe that the enemy has secured a foothold in your territory, you've got to get busy and storm the heights.
You're so right. Boynton Heights, here I come. I'm glad you were prompt this morning, Walter. There's something I want to attend to before my first class.
I know, and I hope he's in his biology lab when you get there. Look, I don't mean to pry into your personal life.
Good, let's keep it that way.
But I couldn't help noticing how little you and Mr. Boynton have seen of each other during the past week.
Now, listen, Walter.
Oh, I know it's because of all the extra work you've had to do. Oh, even Harriet Conklin, our principal's own daughter, told me she thought he's been driving you like a horse.
Oh, I don't know. I always whinny while I work.
And you've noticed something else, too. Miss Enright hasn't let any grass grow under her feet.
Please, Walter, Miss Enright's gardening problems don't interest me.
You know what I mean, Miss Brooks. She's had dates with Mr. Boynton one night after another.
Walter, I know you're fond of me and mean to be helpful. But if this intensely personal conversation doesn't stop, I'll get out and walk to school.
Gosh, Miss Brooks, I didn't mean to intrude on your privacy, but it just happens that I have a wonderful plan to get Mr. Boynton out of Miss Enright's clutches once and for all. You want to hear it, Miss Brooks?
How can I help it? I'm not going to get out and walk to school.
Now you're talking. Oh, the scheme is very simple. We just fight fire with fire. For the past 3 nights, Mr. Boynton has had dinner at Miss Enright's place. Everybody knows that.
What does she live in, a television studio?
Please, Miss Brooks, you'll stop the flow.
Sorry.
Obviously, Mr. Boynton keeps coming back there because he gets some good food, and the price is right. Hence, the old saying is proved again, the way to a man's heart is through his stomach.
Well, that may be one of the better routes, Walter, but how do we interrupt Miss Enright's regularly scheduled trips?
That's where the fighting fire with fire comes in.
Please, Walter, burning down a fellow teacher is arson.
No, you don't burn her down. You simply tap the same source that she uses for tempting recipes. Then you invite Mr. Boynton to your lair. Your place.
Well, what is her source of recipes?
Miss Dugan's domestic science class. The girl's learning to cook at the best recipes you've ever seen.
And Miss Enright borrows them?
Sure. After school, she takes them right off the bulletin board in Miss Dugan's room. And they print new ones every day. And Harriet tells me they're so simply written that a sub-moron could follow the instructions.
Thanks, Walter.
I didn't mean it that way, Miss Brooks. But I know you haven't had much experience cooking, and
You're right, Walter. Mrs. Davis does all our cooking.
Well, Harriet's going to meet us at school this morning and take you into the domestic science class for a little brush-up. And then you invite Mr. Boynton to dinner tonight and let nature take its course. Well, here we are. You get out, Miss Brooks, and I'll find a place to park.
All right, Walter. Oh, I keep forgetting. You've got tin slats where the doors should be. Give me a hand, will you?
Oh, sure, Miss Brooks. There you go. Well, the corrugated tin looks nice instead of doors, doesn't it? I got the idea from the new Hudson.
The new Hudson?
Yeah. This is the car you step down out of. Oh, and there's Harriet.
Hi, Miss Brooks. Walter.
Hiya, Harriet. Take our charge in tow. I'll just be a couple of minutes.
Okay, Walter. See you later. Come on, Miss Brooks. Let's go in.
All right, Harriet. You seem to be the doctor.
You just leave this thing to us, Miss Brooks. We'll have that certain party eating out of your hand in no time.
If I break any more dishes at home, he'll have to.
Now, here's our plan, Miss Brooks. Mr. Boynton's favorite dish is Boston Stew.
Boston stew? How do you know?
Miss Enright pumped him for it yesterday.
Seems like a lot of trouble to go to.
Now, Miss Enright suggests Miss Dugan is going to get the best possible recipe for Boston stew and put it on the bulletin board sometime today.
Then Miss Enright will stop by and... Excuse me, Harriet. I think I'll drop into the domestic science room for a minute.
I knew you'd catch on. I've got to stop by Daddy's office, but I'll join you in a little while. We've still got some time to brush you up on some fundamentals.
All right, Harriet.
Well, if it isn't Miss Brooks.
Miss Enright.
What brings you to the domestic science room, darling?
Oh, I've always been domestic. Only nowadays you've got to make a science out of it.
Well, if I've said it once, I've said it a dozen times. The way to a man's heart is through his stomach.
By now, that should seem like the old Ox Road to you.
I suppose you're referring to my constant dinner companion of the past week.
Yes, I am. While I was home alone working overtime, you were home with Mr. Boynton working overtime. And I don't think it's fair, Miss Enright.
All's fair in love and war, darling.
You're just loaded with goodies today, aren't you?
After all, if Mr. Boynton likes good food prepared with loving care, who's to prevent him from getting it?
If I may borrow one of your best used cliches, two can play at that game. I'm going to prepare a dinner for Mr. Boynton that he'll never forget.
You? Oh, darling, you're not the type. Think of the time and money you spend in a beauty parlor to make yourself fairly presentable. A steaming kitchen would play havoc with your fragile charm.
You don't say. Well, for your information, Miss Enright, food can be cooked just as well on a pretty modern range as it can on an old pot-bellied stove.
Are you inferring
if the girdle fits, wear it.
Our Miss Brooks, starring Eve Arden, will continue in just a moment. But first...
By the way, Miss Enright is played by Mary Jane Croft. You might remember her from The Lucy Show. And back then, and of course, Mr. Boynton is Jeff Chandler. From February 5th, 1950, Our Miss Brooks, starring Eve Arden on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Classic Radio Theater family, you know our friend Mike Lindell has a passion to help everyone get the best sleep of your life. He didn't stop by just creating the best pillow. He created the best bed sheets ever. They look and feel great, which means an even better night's sleep for me because, you know, I'm working like 67 hours a day. Now, Mike's offering the best deal on his Giza Dreams bed sheets ever. You can get a set of Giza sheets for as low as $29.98. You'll never want to sleep on anything else once you slept on a set of Giza Dream sheets. A special offer for you right now. You can get a set of Giza sheets for as low as $29.98. Call 1-800-928-4715. Use the promo code Wyatt. Or go to mypillow.com, use the promo code Wyatt. It's good on anything on the website. That number again, 1-800-928-4715. Use my promo code Wyatt. Thank you so much for joining me here on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Now more of Our Miss Brooks starring Eve Arden from February 5th, 1950.
Well, when lunch period came, I hastened toward the school cafeteria to invite Mr. Boynton over for dinner. As I passed the principal's office, however, the door opened and I heard Mr. Conklin murmur, "Halt!"
Step into my office a moment, Miss Brooks.
Aye, aye, sir.
Sit down, please.
Thank you.
Since this is your lunch hour, I'll be brief. I just want to tell you that I appreciate your getting out that typing during this past week.
Oh, you're welcome, Mr. Conklin. Well, see you later.
One moment, please. The spirit with which we tackled a difficult task was most admirable. In fact, as I watched your fingers flying over the keys, putting in carbon paper, second sheets, making erasures, oiling and cleaning the machine, then washing up and starting all over again, I realized that to me this wasn't work at all.
To you, it wasn't.
No, indeed. It was actually, fun. Now, there's another report I must have typed, about 30 pages.
30 pages?
Yes. One long evening will do it.
Oh, good for her. Those Chinese secretaries are really marvelous. Now, if you'll excuse me...
Miss Brooks. I'll be over at your home about 7 tonight.
Mr. Conklin, don't you think you've been a little partial to me lately?
Partial?
With these honorary jobs, I mean. You know how carefully we teachers try to avoid making pets out of any students, and, well, you've got to be doubly careful in your high office not to pet any teachers. I mean, show any partiality. Look, I'd like to make a suggestion.
Mine is an ever-open mind, Miss Brooks.
I know. Why don't you give some other teacher the opportunity of working with you tonight?
Who, for instance?
Well, it's not my place to mention names, but I'm sure Miss Enright would love the opportunity.
Miss Enright, eh? She is a competent sort of an individual. Even more competent than some I've used. Yes. I think I'll ask her about it right now.
Oh, don't ask her now, Mr. Conklin. Surprise her. Just drop over to her place tonight with the work under your arm.
But how can I be sure she'll be at home?
She'll be at home, all right. If you'll just get there at 7 o'clock sharp, Mr. Conklin, I can promise you'll find Miss Enright cooking, with and without gas. It's nice to be having lunch together again, isn't it, Mr. Boynton?
Oh, it's more than nice, Miss Brooks.
It is?
Certainly is. This goulash is terrific.
That's all right for cafeteria food, I guess, but there's nothing like a home-cooked meal. Don't you think so?
Oh, I sure do. I've been very fortunate that way during this past week. I've had a couple of home-cooked meals.
You've had 3, but who counts? What I'm so subtly suggesting, Mr. Boynton, is that you have dinner at my place tonight, for a change.
Your place?
Yes, I thought I'd prepare dinner for 2. Perhaps some special recipe you're fond of?
I wish you'd asked me sooner, Miss Brooks. I promised to have dinner with Miss Enright tonight.
Not again?
Yeah, not again.
Walter, how long have you been eavesdropping behind that history book?
Oh, I haven't heard a thing, Miss Brooks. I was just thinking about what to go and get at the steam table.
Well, you're excused any time, Walter.
Oh, thanks, Mr. Boynton. But all I can say is Anybody that'd eat dinner with Miss Enright instead of a certain other English teacher must have some of his marbles missing.
Walter!
See you later, Miss Brooks.
I can't understand his attitude.
Oh, I guess he just doesn't like Miss Enright.
I can understand his attitude. Look, Mr. Boynton, I happen to know that Miss Enright will be extremely busy this evening. Mr. Conklin's bringing her a report to type.
Mr. Conklin, are you sure?
It was the least he could do. But don't worry about your dinner engagement, Mr. Boynton. All you have to do is transfer your appetite to my table.
Well, if Miss Enright is going to be busy, I guess I could accept your invitation. Got to eat somewhere.
You're too gracious. Is it a date?
Oh, it's a date. But, Miss Brooks, did I understand you to say you were going to cook the dinner?
Certainly.
That's strange. I never thought you knew anything about cooking.
Oh, you'd be surprised. I know some very strange things about cooking.
Hi, Walter. What brings you to the domestic science room?
You'll see, Harriet. I'm glad the others have all gone. Yeah, there. It's up.
What is it, Walter? What did you put on the class bulletin board?
It's a recipe for Boston stew. I printed it myself.
You printed it?
Sure. I got the idea when I heard Mr. Boynton say he was having dinner with Miss Enright tonight.
But, Walter, you don't know anything about Boston stew. What ingredients did you use in the recipe?
Believe me, Harriet, what I printed in this recipe would be banned in Boston.
Golly, it's not poisonous, is it?
Of course not. Just pleasantly sickening. Now, we better get out of here before old Enright comes in. Boy, this'll teach her to try and take up all Mr. Boynton's time just because Miss Brooks is busy working.
Miss Dugan! Oh, Miss Dugan! Oh, I guess everybody's gone home. Uh-oh. What's this on the bulletin board? Recipe for Boston stew. Now, that's what I call a coincidence. Come to Connie, baby. Mr. Boynton should be here soon, Mrs. Davis. How is the Boston stew coming along?
All right, Connie, but there's so many strange ingredients. I must have 15 things cooking in 4 different pots. How does it look to you?
Well, frankly, Mrs. Davis, it looks like the stuff they pulled the big moe out of. But it must be a good recipe, or it wouldn't have been tacked on the bulletin board. Now, then, did you saute the codfish balls in beef gravy and baste the frankfurters with molasses?
I did, Connie.
And did you stuff the olives with shredded wheat before frying them?
Yes. And now I'm just bringing the horseradish and turnip greens to a slow boil here.
Good. And now we come to the main part of the recipe. Wait a minute, I'll read it for you. Under a low flame, gently stir codfish balls in shallow pan while adding 1 cup popcorn. Add bay leaves and wintergreen lifesavers. Then fold in 3 cups peanut brittle. Garnish with diced carrots and allow to simmer in 1 bottle of warm Coca-Cola.
Well, every man to his own taste, I suppose.
Oh, it was very nice of you to help me with this cooking, Mrs. Davis. But remember now, it's our secret.
Of course, dear. As far as Mr. Boynton is concerned, your loving hands alone prepared this masterpiece. Now, I'll just take my coat and be running along, Connie. I'm having dinner at my brother Victor's house.
You told me that before, Mrs. Davis. What time are you due at Victor's?
6 o'clock. What time is it now, Connie?
6:30.
Then I better hurry. I wouldn't want to be late. It's Victor's birthday today, you know.
You told me that before, too.
Really? I am getting absent-minded. Now, where did I put his present? Oh, here it is on the cupboard shelf. 6 nice golf balls. See?
Yes, they're very pretty. Wait a minute, Mrs. Davis. There are only 5 golf balls here.
Oh, that's all right. Victor never plays golf anyway. Well, I'll be going now, dear. Just let the Boston stew simmer for another few minutes and then turn off the gas.
I may not have to turn off the gas. This stuff looks strong enough to blow it out.
Oh, that must be Mr. Boynton now. I'll just slip out this back door and be on my way. Lots of luck with the dinner, dear.
Thanks again, Mrs. Davis. Wish your brother a happy birthday for me.
I will. Good night.
Good evening, Miss Brooks.
Welcome, Mr. Boynton. Let me put your umbrella in the closet.
This is Miss Enright.
Sorry. They both have the same type frame. Come in, I suppose.
Thank you, darling.
Give me your coat, Mr. Boynton. I'll hang it up for you.
Oh, thank you.
Here's my coat, dear.
Just throw it over that chair.
Your hospitality is overwhelming.
You see, Miss Brooks, I took the liberty of bringing Miss Enright along for dinner because we did have a prior date, and she didn't have anything else to do.
But what about...
Mr. Conklin? Well, fortunately, he phoned me about that typing assignment you arranged for me. But I told him that as much as I'd love to help him, I couldn't because of my sore finger.
What sore finger?
The one that got better as soon as I phoned Mr. Boynton. But now that we're here, I don't see why we can't have a fairly jolly dinner party.
Oh, I'll bet you've got a swell dinner ready. What's that I smell? Is it coming from the kitchen?
I wouldn't be surprised if it was running from the kitchen.
I can't say it enough. A great ensemble cast with Eve Arden, Jeff Chandler, Gail Gordon, and here, Miss Enright being played by Mary Jane Croft. February 5th, 1950, Our Miss Brooks on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Thanks for joining us here on Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. And now the conclusion of Our Miss Brooks and the Impromptu Dinner Party from February 5th, 1950.
Well, I guess I'll have to set another place at the table
Don't
now.
you lift a finger, darling. I'll set my own place and pitch right in like a good little sport. We girls have to stick together, you know.
I'm stuck with you, all right.
Well, I'm going into the kitchen, if I may, and help carry things out when they're ready.
All right, Mr. Boynton. Oh, I'll answer the door. You just go on back to the kitchen.
Oh, don't worry about me, Miss Brooks. I'm pretty handy around the house.
Yeah, the wrong house. Walter.
Hiya, Miss Brooks. I knew you were going to be all alone tonight, so I got permission from my folks to eat with you. Can I come in?
Why not? Although about my being alone...
Oh, I've got a story to tell you that'll really cheer you up.
I can use it. Come into the dining room, Walter. We're about ready to start.
Oh, swell. Of course, I've got a date with Harriet tonight, so I'll have to go right after dinner. But I want you to hear the rib I pulled this afternoon.
Well, if it isn't one of my favorite pupils, how are you, Walter?
Miss Enright, but
Well, didn't you expect me either? We're all being surprised tonight, aren't we?
Well, I put everything in this big platter, Miss Brooks. Oh, hello, Walter.
Oh, hello, Mr. Boynton. What are you doing here?
I was invited.
So was Walter. We're all invited. Now, let's sit down and get this over with. Start eating, shall we?
Fine. I'll be the Papa Bear and do the serving. Well, here's yours, Miss Enright.
Thank you, I think.
Here's your dish, Miss Brooks.
Thank you.
Now you, Walter.
Oh, boy, I'm starved.
Well, go on and eat, my boy. This is food that's fit for a king.
Yeah, I'll try one of these round things first. This is kind of slippery.
Look out, Walter, it's rolling off your plate.
Where'd it go?
I caught it on the fourth bound. Here you are.
Say, this is a pretty strange kind of food. It says Spalding Crow Flight on it.
Spalding Crow Flight?
Don't give it another thought. Victor never plays golf anyway.
Just what kind of a dish is this, Miss Brooks?
Oh, can't you tell? This is Boston Stew.
Well, sure, anybody knows that. You can tell at a glance that this is good old Boston Stew.
So that's why why the recipe wasn't on the bulletin board in the domestic science room. You took it, Miss Brooks.
Why not? First come, first served, I always say. Now, let's dig in, shall we?
But, Miss Brooks...
You better start eating, Walter. Remember what you told me. You've got to go right after dinner.
I know, but this isn't the way I want to go. Please, look, Miss Brooks, I gotta talk to you privately for a minute. Come on into the kitchen. Hey, excuse us, folks.
Just continue eating, won't you? I'll be back as soon as I see what's wrong with Walter. What is it, Walter? What's the trouble?
That recipe for Boston Stew. That didn't come from the domestic science teacher. I printed that myself.
You?
Sure, that was the rib I started to tell you about. I thought Mr. Boynton was going to have dinner with Miss Enright, so I wanted to fix her wagon. I just put down everything I could think of in that recipe.
Oh, this is terrible. I've got to stop them.
Yeah, you better. I'm going to take a powder out the back way. If Miss Enright finds out about this, she'll kill me.
And if she doesn't, it's my turn tomorrow. Listen, folks, don't touch the... Where's Miss Enright?
The strangest thing happened, Miss Brooks. She took one spoonful of the stew and got the most peculiar look on her face. And then she excused herself and ran out the front door. I don't know what got into her.
I do. Mr. Boynton, please...
She never acted that rudely before. I can't understand
Well, never mind that now. I hope you didn't taste that stew.
Taste it? Well, I've eaten 2 plates of it. Oh, it's delicious, Miss Brooks. Well, I feel warm all over. Just goes to prove the old saying, the way to a man's heart is through his stomach.
Mr. Boynton, with 2 plates of that stew in there, the super chief couldn't get through. Well, Mr. Boynton was so grateful for the Boston stew, he could hardly wait till the dishes were finished before inviting me to a movie. But as we headed for the closet to get our coats, the front door opened and a familiar voice murmured,
Halt!
Mr. Conklin.
Oh, hello, Boynton. Well, Miss Brooks, since Miss Enright has a bruised finger tonight, I brought over this 30-page report, and I'm going to let you type it.
Thanks a million.
Gosh, Mr. Conklin, we were planning to see a movie.
Well, you'll have to go alone, Boynton. This is business.
Awfully sorry, Miss Brooks. I'll go get my coat out of the closet.
All right, Mr. Boynton. Mr. Conklin, can't this typing be postponed?
I'm afraid not. This is so important, I even skipped my dinner so that we could buckle right down to work. By the way, while we're working, I could use a little snack. Do you have anything around that I could eat?
Eat?
Yes.
I have just the thing for you, Mr. Conklin. Mr. Boynton.
Yes, Miss Brooks?
Stick around. I'll be with you in a minute.
Next week, tune into another Our Miss Brooks show brought to you by Luster Cream Shampoo for soft, glamorous, caressable hair and Colgate Dental Cream to clean your breath while you clean your teeth and help stop tooth decay.
Our Miss Brooks, starring Eve Arden, is produced by Larry Burns, directed by Al Lewis, with music by Wilbur Hatch. Mr. Boynton is played by Jeff Chandler, Mr. Conklin by Gail Gordon. Others in tonight's cast were Jane Morgan, Dick Crenna, Gloria McMillan, and Mary Jane Croft.
From February 5th, 1950, Our Miss Brooks on Classic Radio Theater. Now on Classic Radio Theater, an episode of the soap opera Claudia. This episode originally broadcast February 5th, 1948.
Well, here's LaGuardia Airport.
Hey, where's that man going with your suitcase?
We'll meet him again where we check in.
Oh, I'm always very suspicious about people who go running off with my suitcase that way. I always think I ought to say goodbye to it and that I'm never going to see it again.
You'll see it again, don't worry.
How do you know?
Because that's the way it's arranged.
I know it's arranged that way, but that doesn't mean it's going to happen that way, does it?
Look, darling, the airline people have it all worked out, just so it will be arranged that way.
What?
I don't know what. You've got me so confused, I don't know what I'm trying to say.
I don't see why you're so excited, David. You told me all night that Chicago isn't really very far. It's just like going to Bronxville or... Where is Bronxville, anyway?
Bronxville is in Westchester County. Why do I fall for these questions? Now, just tag along with me, and when I talk to official-looking people, I'll be very happy if you'll try not to interrupt.
I'll try.
That's a step in the right direction. Maybe I should leave home more often.
You leave home once every day, and that's enough for both of us. Say, David, let's start saying goodbye.
Goodbye.
Is that all? You have another 10 minutes?
My watch was wrong. It's only 7 by that clock over there.
Only 7 minutes? That isn't fair. I had 10 minutes of goodbye already, and now I've got 1, 2, 3 minutes left over, and I don't know what I'm going to do with it.
Save it for the next time I go away.
There isn't going to be a next time, is there?
No. Next time, you won't be sick. Dr. Williams won't mind if I roll you up in a blueprint and take you along.
I'm not sick now, David. Can I come along?
You're not coming, period.
Attention, please. Flight 239 for Washington, Winston-Salem, Savannah, Jacksonville, and Miami. Now ready for loading at Gate 7.
Is that you?
Didn't you hear what they said? Washington, Winston-Salem, that's in the South. Do you think Chicago's down south?
I thought it was on the other side of the Mississippi, isn't it?
I think you're thinking of the Swanee, and it isn't.
Oh, this is exciting. You know, I'd like to come here sometime when you aren't going away so I could really enjoy it.
You might find it very educational.
Where are you hurrying to now?
I'm giving up your geography lesson, and I'm going over there to check in.
Where? What do you have to do that for?
So the airplane people know I'm here.
Can't they just see it when they look at you? I don't know why everything has to be so complicated.
It has to be complicated so they know that the plane isn't overloaded when they try to take off.
Well, how could it be overloaded? I thought there were just so many seats.
Are you sure you've never been up in an airplane?
Quite.
I can't quite believe that anyone could ask such ignorant questions without knowing the answers.
I don't think I ever bothered to say so, but I was the first woman to fly to the moon.
Do tell. How was the cheese?
Green. Why are you standing in this line?
This is the checking in line, and my suitcase will be along in a minute. They're going to weigh it.
You really think it's going to find us?
It's a very intelligent baggage. It's full of books and blueprints.
Attention, please. Announcing Flight 647, first section for Boston. Now loading at Gate 7.
Is that yours, David?
Not unless the wind is stronger than I think it is.
It's hard for me to believe that there's strong winds way up in the sky. It looks so quiet and stately. David, are you sure you're going to be all right?
Now look, darling, it's just like taking a streetcar.
It's awfully high up for a streetcar.
They build them high nowadays.
Oh.
Say, you're not going to be silly about this, are you?
No sillier than you are for not taking me to Chicago in the first place.
I didn't tell you to be a hero the other day and nearly get yourself in trouble. And I certainly didn't put Dr. Williams up to ordering you to stay at home.
You just wanted to go sailing off to Chicago all by yourself, like a hawk or something.
More like an eagle, a golden eagle.
Just be sure you don't come back like a bald one.
Impossible. I'm only going to be away a couple of days.
That's what you said yesterday. But your suitcase looked awfully big when you packed it this morning.
Now, here's the checking in line.
Where's the suitcase?
The suitcase? It'll be there when we're at the head of the line.
Announcing Flight 986, non-stop for St. Louis. Now loading passengers at Gate 4.
Non-stop to St. Louis. Now, that isn't it either.
Good morning.
Oh, good morning. I'm David Naughton. I have a reservation on the 9:45 for Chicago.
Good morning.
Good morning, miss.
Oh, it's all right. We're together.
You also are booked on the 9:45?
Oh, no. But I wish I was.
Were.
One reservation for Chicago on Flight 644. Name of David Naughton. One moment, please.
Where's she going? She's gone.
She went to check up on things, I suppose.
Are you sure it isn't going to be too windy? Oh, I wish you were taking a streetcar.
If I were, you wouldn't be seeing me again for 2 months.
That wouldn't matter. After 2 days, I won't be able to feel anything anyway.
Announcing the arrival of Flight 543 from the Azores and Lisbon, with connecting flights from Paris, Rome, and Marseille.
That's not me either.
Will they tell everybody when you come back, or don't they care about a little thing like Chicago?
They will, if they know you're listening.
It's going to be fun.
What happened to the girl we were talking to? She's disappeared.
They always disappear. Wasn't she sort of icy?
Hush up now. Here she comes.
Mr. Naughton, I'm afraid there's been some mistake. The reservation desk has no record of your reservation.
They haven't.
I'm sorry. Reservation says that we're without a vacancy on 644. The earliest we can get you off for Chicago is 11:50 on flight 1236.
That's 2 hours. What a wonderful goodbye we're going to have. Hello.
But that won't do. I'll have to be in Chicago for a 1 o'clock conference.
Why don't you have it at 1 o'clock next Monday so I can go with you?
Isn't there anything you can do?
I'm sorry, Mr. Norton. Well, of course, Mr. Norton, there's a possibility your reservation is on another line.
I just assumed that it was on this one.
I believe that Universal, just across the terminal, has a flight 654 at 9:48. Perhaps your reservation is with them.
It must be. But look at that line in front of their desk. I'd never get through it in time.
I believe I can take you through the line, Mr. Norton, but you'll have to hurry.
I didn't think you could do that.
Oh, I'm just going off duty, and I'll be happy to do it. For you.
David, wait for me. We still haven't said goodbye. And at the last minute, we'll be so busy we'll forget to.
I won't forget. Right now, we've got to keep up with our...
Damsel in distress. No, that's wrong. You're the damsel in distress.
Or a reasonable facsimile.
Funny, I didn't think she was the type to help just any old damsels in distress, did you? Just tall, dark, and masculine ones.
Well, if you really want to make a point of it...
I don't see why you're so embarrassed, David.
Embarrassed? Who's embarrassed?
I'm proud you're the kind of man other women want to help out of trouble. I wouldn't want you any other way. Only don't get into too much trouble, darling.
Now, Claudia, don't be ridiculous.
I don't see why you should get so upset just because your own wife says you're a very handsome man. And you're especially attractive when you're distracted, if you know what I mean.
Claudia, please.
Announcing the departure of Flight 690 for Los Angeles. Passengers now loading at Gate 8.
No, that isn't me.
Are you sure?
I suppose you want me to parachute out when the plane goes over Chicago.
Did they let you?
All I want to know now is whether they'll let me on board.
Now we're all alone except for several thousand other people. And maybe, David, this is a good time to start saying goodbye.
Perfect. Goodbye, darling.
Is that all you're going to say?
It's a beginning.
Doesn't sound like a beginning. Are you going to miss me?
What do you think?
Mr. Norton, here's your ticket.
Yes?
Well, what about your baggage? I assume you had baggage.
Baggage? I had a suitcase, isn't it there?
I told you it wouldn't be, but I'm not going to remind you of that.
It isn't there?
Well, not a sign of it.
Well, they must have put it over at your checking desk.
You see, you haven't got such an intelligent suitcase after all. Wyatt isn't even bright enough to be a hat box.
Announcing the departure of flight number 444, non-stop for Chicago. Now loading passengers, Gate 3.
That's yours, isn't it?
No, miss. That's ours. Mr. Norton's flight won't be announced for several minutes more. Well, I've just time to attend to your suitcase. It will be checked right through for you, Mr. Norton.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
I hope we may have the pleasure of helping you again, Mr. Norton. Ourselves.
Well...
the airline, I mean.
Oh, yes, the airline.
Well, goodbye, Mr. Norton. Goodbye, miss. Have a good flight.
I'm afraid she thought you were my sister, my younger sister, but she was very efficient.
I wonder what happens to the poor suitcases that don't belong to attractive men. I'll bet they never get on the right plane.
That has nothing to do with it. She was just being helpful.
Darling, I wouldn't have it any other way. Only if she hadn't been so nice, then you would have missed the plane. And, no, I don't wish that either.
That's better. Whew. This is the first moment we have had to breathe since we found we were standing in the wrong line.
Announcing the departure of Flight 454, non-stop to Chicago. Now loading at Gate 2.
I know. Your hat's on crooked.
Thanks. Oh, I'll fix it myself.
Let me fix it. I don't want to be picturing you for the next 2 days with your hat on crooked.
Picture me without a hat on at all.
And your tie. I want that to be straight, too.
I'll picture you standing just the way you are, with your hands at my throat.
You make me sound dangerous.
You are terribly dangerous.
I am?
You are a menace to freedom. You take away about 98% of the fun of going to Chicago.
Are you going to be terribly miserable?
Object. I won't stop crying till we fly over Indianapolis, and then I'll sob all the rest of the way.
I must be awful, but I'd be a lot happier if you were going to cry all the way to Chicago. I'm going to bawl all the way home.
Serves you right.
Are you going to dream about me?
I certainly am. You have no idea how funny you look in my dreams.
Your tie's still crooked.
You just fixed it.
I know, but it's crooked the other way. David. Hurry back.
I haven't even left yet.
And keep away from pretty girls on streetcars or I'll scratch all their eyes out.
Tough guy, aren't you, Mrs. Norton?
David, I'm afraid I'm not tough enough.
Guess I'm not very tough either.
Announcing the departure of flight number 694 for New Orleans, non-stop. Passengers now loading gate number 1.
Sure they haven't announced my plane yet?
Positive. I certainly would have heard it.
So would I.
They haven't announced anything since you started looking for the suitcase, except they announced the other plane to Chicago a second time.
A second time? I wonder... Claudia, come on.
How do you know which way?
It's got to be this way. It's around here.
And down there.
That's right. That must be where those people are.
David, I think you'll make it.
Barely. Well, here we are.
Don't ever go away again.
Here's till I get back. Now, please, don't do anything wrong. See you in 46 hours.
David! We still haven't said goodbye. But, darling, I know we'll never really have to.
Catherine Bard and Paul Crabtree in the radio program Claudia. This episode was February 5th, 1948. It actually has its roots back in the Kate Smith Hour back in 1941. And the show grew. It had a short run where Patricia Ryan and Dick Colmer played Claudia and David. And quite frankly, the show was delightful, whatever you did with it. It's not your typical soap opera, because quite frankly, the show was just too sweet to be dreary. And of course, Ted over at RadioMemories.com has a full run of Claudia. RadioMemories.com. Thank you so much for making us a part of your day. Would you do me a favor and thank this radio station and support their advertisers? Their kindness and courtesy allows us to be with you each and every time we roll around. Visit my webpage, classicradio.stream, where you can stream our shows on demand, learn more about classic radio collecting, and contact me, classicradio.stream. Don't forget our programs are available anywhere on the internet podcasts are served. Just search for Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. That's Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox. Have yourself a great day. Tell all your friends the great radio shows are right here at this spot on the dial. Classic Radio Theater with Wyatt Cox on your favorite station.